So your project feasibility and return on investment. This is where we're talking about how do you go about getting approval from your financial officer, from your board of directors to do a building. So let's say we're going to build a facility, and that facility is going to cost $30 million. The one you're using right now is located 2.5 hours away, and we're going to move that from 2.5 hours away to within fiber distance. So now all the equipment in the two buildings thinks it's on one floor, and we can go active. You start off with a active business continuity disaster recovery setup, and if your primary facility is down, impact to your customers is high, impact to the company is high, loss of revenue is painful. Active, interlaced primary and secondary high availability equipment. Now you can lose a facility, half of it has to switch. If 10% of that doesn't successfully make the jump, you've only lost 10% of half, as opposed to 100% of everything that was in the original building. These are the things that the executives want to hear. Existing facility rent, $1 million a year. Communications to that building, $1.5 million. We're going to get rid of that, right? We're going to move this thing close, and we're going to own the fiber between them. Reduction in travel expenses, $30,000 a year. How do we get to $30,000? Well, mileage is 54 cents a mile, and 2.5 hours at 60 mile an hour is 150 miles, or $81 a trip one way, right? So you got your server folks going over, your network engineering folks going over, storage, large equipment. Every one of them is getting $162 a loop to go around, plus hotel costs, plus lunch and dinner and breakfast while you're away from the office. It piles up pretty quick. So we do a rate reduction negotiation with the local provider. It benefits us to the tune of $150,000 a year. And we get $1 million in sales tax abatement on construction materials purchased locally. So the 1 year savings on that is $3.68 million. And then every year after that is $2.68. So the payback for the facility on cost avoidance alone is 9.82 years. How many years do we depreciate a facility for? 40. This becomes a conversation that you can have. Here's how we're giving back. Here's how it's going to become a benefit to the company after 1 year. Here's what's going to look like in 10 years. Here's what we're going to do in the next 10 years to keep that thing growing and keep the company making money. Every organization has a cost of money. Chief Financial Officer can talk to you about that. But the other thing they're going to want to talk about when you're doing this is, if we're going to build this, is it going to be a greenfield, or are we going to buy a building that's in existence? Sometimes that can be a really lucrative thing if you can find a building that fits the needs, if it's kind of already constructed in the manner that you would like to see your data center built. Generally, when you're doing this, there are things that your executives are going to want to hear you answer, sir.
Yeah, I just wanted, so in this example, are you talking about a case where you were leasing a facility and you made the case to build your own?
Yeah, and this one you were leasing a facility. Could be a colo, could be a building that you've leased and constructed a data center in. Hypothetical case here, but not too far off of real world numbers and that I have experienced in the past. And if you look at colos, generally, you're going to pay for so much a square foot plus a profit margin. You're going to pay so much a KW plus a profit margin plus a KW upcharge. You're going to pay so much for their folks to go in and add you power drops when you need to put something in. Generally, that's all outsourced. You wind up spending extra to get it, but you don't have the ownership of the building. So anybody else doing anything in that facility, you're not in control of. And you can run some fire risk, you can run some hazards of a person EPOing a power system or maintenance that is done that you don't have any control over, because they have a large number of folks in there. Unless you're solely renting the building and you're solely in control of the power and cooling plant, you can find yourself at risk at a lot of different places, just as they do regular maintenance and they're trying to meet maybe their biggest customer's window, and you're not their biggest customer, so you get what they give you. They're going to want to see what did you do to select a piece of land? How many pieces of land did you look at, and what things did you take into consideration? You know, looking at all the things from the perspective of the CIO, the CEO, board of directors. From their perspective, they're going to want to know that you took the time to select a location that makes sense from a security, from a cost, and from even from a face of the company perspective. We want to be in a certain really popular area of town that's blowing up, so we want to get this thing over there. Or we don't want to be there because there's too much risk. We'd rather be over here in the industrial park kind of area. But there are risks that come with that. And everybody's company is going to be different. Availability of green resources. Can you get solar power? Can you get wind power? You know, what kind of green initiatives does the local power company have that you can take advantage of? And then, of course, you get to tout that back to your customers that we built this building and we went after green energy.